G'day, campers. How are you? And welcome to another Thursday Night Live as we just open up, and we're having a bit of a giggle because I've started the night with great shirt. Alan should match the Papa Smurf image. So I'm sorry. Well, I'm gonna. I missed that. I'm sorry.
You're on live.
Yes, we are. So
I know. Phone just told me.
I'm telling you to get stuff while we're on live.
No.
Well, that happens every day, ending in Y.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? So I want to jump into it a bit tonight. We're running a bit late, and I'm sorry about that. It's my fault because I could have jumped on, but I've been waiting for Alan Stevens, who is Papa Smurf. And tonight we're talking about leadership, and Papa Smurf for me is very apt because Papa Smurf looks after the tribe. Papa Smurf brings everybody together, sits and gathers knowledge, and then shares his wisdom with the other Smurfs and looks after them. So for Alan, for me, that's my highest compliment I can give you. You know, Papa Smurf, and I'm just rapt that you're wearing blue to match it tonight. So welcome.
Thanks for that. Well, that means that you and John are the Smurfs and Angela's a Smurfette. There we go.
Oh, touche. And do you know what? How appropriate is that? You know, Angela Heise, like she's a leadership and emotional productivity trainer and a big part of the Campfire Project. And welcome, Angela, or Smurfette, we might be calling her tonight. And that leads us over to John Hope, who's a business and life strategist. And I'd hate to consider what Smurf we're going to call John.
Yeah. Sorry, my son's just walked in. Pizza's there, dude. Sorry.
There you go. True leadership, son. Here's the pizza. Yeah. And welcome, John. Welcome to tonight. We're talking about. No, you're welcome. Leadership's something for me that I think is a very, very important topic. And my personal beliefs are that we need to look at the way in which we're structuring our leadership, because at the moment we're all questioning the opportunities of society and everybody's looking at things differently because of COVID, and we're learning lots of different things, and leadership comes in so many different places. And I will share a couple of stories a bit later, but I'm going to ask each of you, if that's all right, what leadership means to you. And if it's all right, I'd like to start with you, Alan.
Leadership is all about developing other people. It's about letting other people grow. One of the things I always say that a leader's job is to make themselves redundant, and that's by bringing other people up to their level. If you don't, you're in a prison. You've set yourself a prison. If you make yourself indispensable, but by helping other people to grow, they reach their full potential. And as a leader, you also capitalize on that as well. So it's people working together.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, John.
Leadership. I consumed a book that is widely regarded the best leadership book on the planet by John Maxwell, 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. And he says leadership is influence, and it's nothing more, nothing less. And it does affect every aspect of your life. It affects your family, home. The one I had, as you know, I had a bottle shop and I led a team of people, and like sales leadership, the worst thing you can say to someone is, "Can I help you?" It's giving away your leadership. When they're coming in to get something, then you do a different process where you lead them through the start. And it really doesn't matter what you're doing. Leadership is, the influence that you have on someone is in direct comparison to your leadership's ability and skill. So I think it's one of the most important things there is in the planet.
Yeah, thank you. I actually agree with that. So, but we'll get into that bit. Angela, please, your version of leadership.
So for me, leadership is about influencing and empowering, like Alan was saying, and inspiring people. So it's connecting them to vision and purpose. Like Alan, I always say to people, your job as a leader is to make yourself redundant, and most importantly, your job is to create new leaders. So your job is not to create followers, but to create new leaders. And you do not do that by treating people like managers, where you manage people like tasks, which is what a lot of people think. Because a lot of leaders get promoted into a managerial position where which they get because they are really good at the job they're doing. They're really good at managing the task. But all of a sudden, they're no longer doing the task. They're now supposed to lead people. And for a lot of people, it's the inability to let go. So when I say to them, your job is to make yourself redundant, people panic. They go, but then I don't have a role anymore. Yeah, you do. You've got an even more important one. You're helping people to be the best that they can be.
Yeah. So I realised a long time ago, if you don't do that, you're stuck in the job that you're in. You can't go anywhere else.
Yeah.
In every aspect of my life, I've made myself redundant over and over, and I watch the people come up behind me. And I've really taken pride in the fact that some of them have done much better jobs than I actually did. Then I know I've really done my job, but it's freed me up to go and do the next thing.
Yeah.
Some people say, oh, but this is my organisation, I run it and everything else. And like I say, well, some people say it's my bus or my vehicle, I'm driving it. And I go, well, like with the Campfire Project, I built the vehicle, I drove the vehicle for a while, but as you can see now, with you guys are all jumping in and driving the vehicle, and that way I can sit in the passenger seat and enjoy the scenery, which I can't do when I'm driving. So it makes life so much better.
But for a lot of leaders, it's a power thing, what I think is really important is that, and this is also the new generation, they don't want to have power over, so where they're giving away their responsibility. They want to participate. They want to be equal partners. The current generation Y are used to having parents around who discuss things with them, who don't just delegate. They can ask questions and they participate. And so it's really important that we empower people to take part in this powerful process rather than in the power over. Because that's the parent-child model.
And that's edification. Like with parents, you edify someone, you give them power. And then together, collectively, you can lead someone through it. And that's leadership. Like I said before, that book, it just has so many, it just defines the aspects of leadership. And if you can comprehend it, law of association, you teach your kids to be around your five best friends. You're the mean average of your five best friends. And that's one of the leadership principles. And it's just, it's such an important, integral part of your life that, like we're watching stuff on the news with, said politicians and things like there's some that have a leadership, there's some that come as political. Political's not necessarily leadership, and like Angela said, we've got a serious lack of leadership. And I think people get away from the actual leadership role and try and get into the popular role. The leader's not always popular. The leader leads by example and leads with integral, based decisions. So it's such an important thing. We don't focus on that.
That fits not just in work, but also fits in our personal lives as well. I know a lot of parents will say, I want to be my kid's best friend. No, I told my boys there was no way I was going to be their best friend. I was their father, because their best friend won't tell them when they need to know something, because their best friend will just want to be compliant and all the rest of it. And it's in that way, doing that with your children, you're helping them to learn all the skills that they need so they grow up strong, so that when you're not around, they can do the same thing with their kids. And it's passing on skills to other people and doing it in a way in which the other person can do so much more with it than what you did, because they've got all of your experiences plus their experiences to add to it.
And you've got to make the hard calls. So, I mean, generally when you ask people, do you want to be liked or be respected? They will answer respected. But the choices they make are generally around being liked. So, and that's really problematic, because if you're operating from that approval and biggest fan and most likes and biggest, most shares model, then you can't make the hard calls. You can't just say, this is the line, we draw the line. And again, especially if you don't negotiate, how are you going to do that? It's going to get very tricky. And then that's when people walk away and they go, oh, this is just too hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, communication skills is an integral part as well of leadership. Like Alan teaches how to communicate, and that's how to lead someone to whatever the subject matter is that you communicate. And the better you are at it, the better your leadership skills are. It's not so much that you can learn different parts of communication, but it's about leading people to whatever whatever you're trying to communicate.
And it starts with the simple things. I had a client yesterday, and she used the word, I said, so how do you talk to people? You should, you must, you ought to, you really should do, and you need to do this. That's not empowering language. It's not inviting the person in. There's no empowerment in that. But if saying things like, how about you? Why don't you? And what would you, I'm sure you've got, this is the kind of coaching language, where you empower the person to actually do it. When you say you should, you must, you need, you ought to, that's parent language.
It's management language too. It's pecking. You need to let them come up with the answer themselves and help guide them. That's how you lead them through a topic or a subject. Yeah. But if you're just going to manage them, then you're a teacher. You're doing this, and when you're doing that, you got 3 pointing back at yourself. So that's where your focus should be.
Yeah. So Scott, you talked about some of the coaches that you've had working with you in the past and the way they guided you and everything else. But then you look at the work that you've done with Oscar, the work with the Victorian Brotherhood and the other things that you're doing there. Now, what have you noticed in how that made you feel in the work that you're doing now? Because we're going to talk about leadership. It's always good to look at our own journeys as well. What did we learn out of that? And I know that you've learned a hell of a lot, and you're definitely a leader. So come on, we need to hear from you too.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I believe I'm acting as a leader. I'm sitting here listening. I'm listening to what you're giving to me, so I know how to respond. That's
you're also
all.
Influencing people in a positive way.
You cannot be heard until you listen.
That's right. One mouth, 2 ears, and 2 eyes.
100%. And at the moment, I'm working in amongst amazing people, who are doing amazing things. And every single time it comes down to feeling heard. As soon as you feel heard, you've got the ability to communicate. Once you can communicate, then we've got an opportunity to grow and learn from each other. My personal view on true leadership comes from the ability to be able to work with others, not demand from others. And that's where we all grow together. Like it's the moment there's a comment up here which a true leader makes. True leader shows that he or she has been vulnerable themselves and have made mistakes themselves, showing people how you've learned from your mistakes. And that's the one thing I adore, because we're all human. And we make mistakes. And once we learn that mistakes are all a part of life and that we can make them and learn and take those lessons and really grow. The Campfire Project and my journey inside it is that. If you watch, I watched the first production I did on this when I had no TV and I'm up there and it's ugly.
No.
But leadership is about doing it regardless of how you feel. It's just getting it done because it's the right thing to do it.
But that's courage you're talking about, and that's part of being a leadership. That's doing the right thing, even in the presence of danger or obstacle. So it's one of the main leadership principles. I agree.
Yeah.
I'd like to say one thing. You do it no matter what is not a really good attitude. Because if you're sick and you're exhausted and you're pushing yourself through as a leader, you're very likely to make some mistakes that you would have not made otherwise. This is why it's so self-care is absolutely crucial. That's why it's always good to have more people around you who can take over.
You got to put the oxygen mask on first. That's right.
Yeah. So that's why whenever I look, I mean, when I work with people, I say the first thing I pretty much ask them is, so do you have a 2CI? And they go, no. Do you have anybody who could replace you if you got sick? And they go, no. That's the first thing we're going to work on. Do you have anybody in your team who can do that? No. Okay, well, then you start growing them. Because if you're the one who has to do it no matter what, and you burn out, you're not going to be a great role model. And that's one thing that I don't know about. If that's something we want to teach Oscar. Put your own well-being aside for the sake of things.
I think part of being a coach is leadership as far as leading them. You know where they come to you at a certain point and you've got to get them to where they want to be, but you need to influence them to get them to that point. And if you're going to influence them, you've got to have the knowledge and the ability to do so. So, you know, all those things play an effect. I agree, Angela, 100%.
That's I find it really interesting, because one of the main things that for me that I do with Oscar and within the brotherhood, I'll go there quickly, and believe it or not, I don't actually have a pen in front of me, which is really embarrassing. But hashtag raise a pen. Thank you. See, that's bags. I always have one. But anyway, so you know, it came about because a couple of guys committed suicide in 24 hours, and we try to change the way we do things because sick of raising a glass for everything. So we raise a pen, sit down, write down our notes, and write down our notes. I'm still looking for a pen, but it's and inside these meetings, like we sit there and we listen to men, and there's a guy I want to give a big shout out to, Jason, who came in with an opportunity that most people wouldn't dare put up in front of everybody. And he sat there in front of 25 blokes and put his situation up. And then we picked it apart. We found resolution. And now he's thriving. To me, that was pure leadership. He took responsibility for his situation, put his hand up and said, can I please get some help?
Well, leadership always starts with self-leadership.
Yeah. You see why I asked, I wanted to hear from you, because it's not just, us having this conversation. I'm thinking of everybody who's listening. And if they want to see some examples, we're listening to them right now.
I said that to Scotty not long ago. I said, he was talking about leadership, and I've gone, mate, you're an incredible leader. And he's like, what? And I've gone, mate, you influence so many people. Leadership is influence. And I think you see it better now, but you couldn't see it that clearly back then. And I think that's, probably comes down to self-talk a little bit, which is keeping you humble, which is good. Like that's something that that's a good thing, not a bad thing. But your natural leadership skills are incredible. And that, Angela, you must have heard of John Maxwell's 21 irrefutable laws.
Yeah.
One of the things is law of the lead, which is you can only lead people with less leadership skills than you. And Scotty, you lead people that you don't realise have what you would think is bigger leadership skills than you. But if that was the case, you couldn't lead them. So your leadership skills are there in abundance, and they're naturally there, and you don't even realise.
And you notice the impact that you've had on a lot of those guys. And then I'm thinking of Vaughan and a few of the others. When you look at them and where they've come and what they're doing now, their leadership abilities are coming out as well. This is the whole thing. It's proper leadership is it's what do you call it? It's a virus. It's something that can go through everybody. And that's the whole thing, is each person being bigger and bigger again. I've had the opportunity, as I said, getting out of the driver's seat and in the passenger seat, so I can actually put my feet up and feel very comfortable. That's because.
Do you have to move the cushions?
Yeah. We're not going there, John. We're not going there. So if anybody's wondering what's going on here, John actually did a video with me sitting next to me, and he had a one chair and I had a slightly higher stool. And then one day I was seeing my guy on the screen when he's on the other end, and he went, 2 cushions. So lucky I like you, mate. But see, this is the thing, and that's part of it as well, as having the humour that goes with all of that. Not having an ego that's fed on feeling insecure. Now, we joke with people and laugh with people that we feel really comfortable with. That's part of the leadership role as well, as having comfort in yourself, first of all, who you are, always wanting to be not so much the smartest person in the room, but not the dumbest either. I'm not an idiot. You want to be keeping coming up the other level and keep bringing smarter people in, growing with them so that you increase your leadership skill. But while you're increasing your skills, make sure that the people around you are also getting what you've learned. Pass it on as soon as you've learned it, so other people can then follow you through.
Yeah, I look at leadership as support. And I think the framework of which leadership's been done in the past is the opportunity of which we get to look at. And I always talk about the two triangles, one pointing up, another pointing down, and which one's stronger? You know, like I think our society at the minute's running on this one because we're trying to get to the top. We get to the top. It's the only place up there. It's only one place to go. You know, and then that pressure comes all the way down. Comes down to a base layer, which is our current society that just can't sustain it. We're trying to hold up too much. Whereas we flip it upside down, which I can't do too well, but, you know, and we focus on that way, right? We focus on the, right, and we bury that point in the ground. We get the foundations right on that point, that one individual who can then support two people, which gives them the opportunity to support two people. All of a sudden, we've got 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128. All of a sudden, we've got an infinite opportunity to grow. And I think, personally, that's what we're starting to see. You know, there's amazing people are just supporting one another. And I'm really interested to see how things go post-COVID because Melbourne's just coming out of lockdown. I still haven't been out to dinner with anybody.
Oh, wow.
I think the opposite of what you're saying, though, is management. You got one side's management, one side's leadership. Management is all about being the authoritarian, telling people what to do. Leadership's not telling people what to do. It's showing them the way. And when you show them the way, that's duplicatable. But telling people what to do is duplicatable, but you just make another manager. You don't make a leader.
That's it.
It also creates friction because you've got a manager pushing down.
Natural leaders and managers are like polar opposites, and like you know, when you put they repel each other. So
yeah,
that was how our
dinosaurs.
Sorry,
I call them the dinosaurs.
Yeah, those we see it in a lot of businesses, boardrooms. We see it in politics. It's a competition. Everybody, it's, you know, we see some of our politicians around the world getting together. It's a pissing competition. And it's like, you think anything's going to get done because everybody's feeling, you know, all these people who come out with bravado, I just see them as scared little boys and girls who aren't coping with things. Whereas, you know, somebody who feels right in their own skin, feels right around other people. And if you've got people like that, you're getting things done. Leadership is about cooperation, not about dominance.
And they don't assume that they know everything. You know, they're leaders who ask for expertise and then they make their own decision and override the experts because they are the boss. And I've seen that over and over again. I mean, may I give an example that really highlighted that to me? Because it was one of those, oh my God, moments. We were doing the CEO had called us and it was a family business. And he said, my executive team is not really doing any work and I don't get any benefit out of them. And so what we did is we said, okay, well, we taught them the 6 thinking hats and we had a whole strategy session. And they all participated. They loved it. They came up with some great ideas. At the end of the session, the CEO reached under the table, put out a folder and said, thank you, everybody, for your input. Here's something I've prepared earlier. This is what we're going to do. Okay. I left and said to myself, I'm giving the team 3 months. Within 2 months, they were all gone. That's not leadership, but that's the old model. I know best.
That's management. That's boss mentality.
Yeah,
Leadership's not bosses.
no, it's not. But it's about empowering it's about acknowledging that people have a mind. It's about acknowledging their autonomy, their competence, and a lot of the old leadership, and they still use that word leadership around that, the dinosaurs, has absolutely nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
It's
And
what to think, not how to think.
if you manage people, like you're saying, you create that automatic resistance, like that trait that Alan's got. Isn't that right? Maybe just a little bit. But if you, like I know with the shop, when we had the bottle shop, if I was doing sales, I'd do sales as leadership. So if someone comes into the bottle shop, they're coming in to buy something, alcohol, soft drinks, or whatever. But if they go to the Sauv Blanc, Sauvignon Blanc wine, as soon as they walk in, if I go, can I help you? I'm a manager and I just gave leadership to them. And what happens with most people, they get an automatic resistance. And I used to tell my staff I hated it. I wouldn't allow it. And then say, okay, I see you looking at the Sauv Blancs. If I show you one that's really good value for a good price, would you, or if I know of one that's really good value and good price, would you want me to tell you about it? Oh, yeah. I've given them the power to ask me, but I led them there. I didn't manage them there by going, what do you want? And then once they do it, they go, oh, okay. And then once they go, oh, yeah, that's good. I haven't convinced them. When people convinced against their will, same opinion still, what's that? How to Win Friends and Influence People. But I led them there. Does that make sense? And that's for me, that's the difference between leadership and management. You can do sales management. You can do, like, psychologists do emotional management. They don't do emotional leadership.
That's why they have 2 years.
Yeah. But does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. And I'm just like I'm sitting here thinking about the situations that I've gone through in life and how significant change is made because we've worked as a team to sit and release and understand, and the power comes to the person. At the moment,
You do that. You go to someone who's suicidal or something and say, have you thought about this? You give them the leadership to come, but you don't say, don't do that, you dickhead, like a manager. You do that. I remember that's why we had this conversation. I remember you do that. And you do it naturally.
And thank you, John. But it's one of my go-tos,
Don't think you, mate. You do it.
Give people the power to make a decision.
Yeah. Yeah.
And let them fail if they can't make the right one, and give them the safety to come back to you to actually open the communication. Oscar's going to kill me one day, all right? Because he's going to watch some of this stuff. I thought, no, joke. But so I'm going to give you a prime example of something that happened. Bit of a shock, but he gets in the car after school and pick him up, have a conversation. Dad, what's cocaine? That's an interesting topic, Oscar. How did this come about? So, well, in the playground, this was happening, and they were crushing up rocks and making cocaine. And I'm like, what do you think about that? He said, I don't know, Dad. I don't exactly know what it is. I said, would you like to know? He said, yes. I said, okay, well, it's a drug that people use to numb themselves when they don't want to deal with life and they need a coping mechanism. It's not always the greatest thing, but it's not something to be fearful of, but it's something you should need to understand in the future. Does that answer your question? Yes, Dad. But how come they're doing it at school? Good question, Oscar. Why do you think they're doing it at school? Because I think it's been from watching movies and stuff like that. And cool. Tough conversation, with a 9-year-old kid. Tough. Did I want to have that with a 9-year-old kid? No. But I held the space and asked him questions so that he could process it, so that he's got it. But it's not running away from anything. Did I enjoy that conversation? I'm still not sure. It was a fair shock to the system.
No, but you have the courage to have it. Most people close it down, manage it, and say, ask me when you're older.
Yeah. But as a society, are we brave enough to lead that? That's the one I want.
I don't think we are. I think that's why this is, like, you bringing this up, once again, shows your leadership skill, shows your leadership ability.
Yeah.
And it's going against what everyone else sort of does. But you break it down and you make it sound like common sense. Mate, I think you do an incredible leadership job. I've told you that a few times. You know, you don't give yourself enough credit for how much leadership skills you have.
See, and that's something to think about as well, because being humble and being at the right level, as you were saying before, Angela, the humility that comes, it's not being to the point where you deny what you already are. It's recognizing, but having the humility with the recognition of it. Because if you don't, you can end up denying what yourself, and therefore when you deny yourself and you're not acting as you would really like to, or how you could be as a leader, you're actually robbing other people as well. So we've got to find that balance in there of recognizing, well, humility we need. You know, Aboriginal society, love, humility and respect. Without those, you've got nothing. So humility's got to be there, but you'll see those men who are humble, they have strength, they have power, same as the women. And so it's having where your head doesn't get carried away, where you don't get, become a dumbalang, a dickhead, where you think you know everything, but at the same time not holding yourself back because you don't feel you're good enough. As I always say to people who don't think they're good enough, I say, get over yourself. If you think you're too good, if you don't think you're good enough, get over it. If you think you're too good, get over yourself. And so finding that point in between, in that balance. So recognizing, yes, I've done a great job and everything else, but we go without going to the big-headed view, where you then go, look at me. But at the same time, realize that, hey, there's more that I'm learning. I've just learned something new. It's part of my leadership is I will always be learning. I'll never stop learning.
Growth mindset.
So I can then share that with others.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great point, because I'd actually like to go into the traits of a
Before we do that, I'd like to come back to you about something, because that's really, really important to me. You said you have to let people go, and they have to discover, and they have to do things. I agree with that to a certain point. Like, you could have easily said, not easily, but you could have theoretically, and I'm using this as an example because you brought it up. You could have said to Oscar, cocaine? Well, let's go and get some, and then you can try it out, and you have an experience of what that is, right? Or, yeah, we'll talk about this later when you're old enough to understand what this is, and hopefully you won't play with it before you do. Sometimes you actually have to lead people into this. You can't say to somebody, okay, let me show you how to drive a car, and or let's use the bicycle. I'll ride a bicycle in front of you up and down, and you watch me, and then what I'll do is you sit on it, and then I'll give you a parcel, and you have to deliver it in the pouring rain and peak hour traffic to the other side of the city. But that's what often happens. People go, you are a competent, autonomous person. I have just told you 3 times how to do this. Off you go. Or again, throw them into the experience and say, just work it out yourself. You're a big person. You can do this. As a leader, you actually have to assess the ability of somebody to be able to do that. So you have to coach them into it. You might have to direct at sometime when somebody has absolutely no experience. You got to be a little bit more directive. But then you get into the coaching process and you say, okay, first I showed you, now you show me. And then you get into a place where you say, okay, now you come back to me if there are any issues. Ideally, you want to get to the place where they come, you know what? I delivered that parcel. I had a problem with a flat tire along the way, but I fixed that. Yay.
Yeah, and that's the difference between letting them go and letting them grow.
Yeah.
That's like, I'm looking at that scenario, and I think that's one of the greatest abilities of a leader is to assess a situation, put somebody into that situation that may be a little bit green, but give him the guidance to actually be able to become that leader. And I'm going to use me as an example. Alan's grabbed me, green as, given me an opportunity, saw that I might be able to do one or two things, and then has let me fall safely with
Yes.
guidance, you know. And for me, that's
Am I the only one who saw that the humble thing there? Am I the only one?
But he didn't drop you in and said, "Off you go, Scott." You
Yeah,
know,
because he's
fall down
humble.
the chasm. No.
He's humble. He's a leader.
Yeah.
And it's in the structure of how you put it together. As I said, it's helping that person to grow, because if you help them to grow, then you're growing at the same time, because you can't, as I say, you can't light someone else's path without lighting your own. So as you help them grow, you're growing. This is how you can then grow into a new position, something else you can do, and they can then come up and take that role over. And one of the things that I've been really proud of in some of the people I've worked with in surf clubs and other things, I've had people come to me later on and say, "Oh, so-and-so did a better job than you did in that role." And I got a smile on my face, and they're going, "What are you smiling at?" And I go, "I really did my job right." And I really
influence them.
Well, a number of people have said, if I get a whole bunch of people, I train them to do the profiling I'm doing, and then one of them becomes another Anthony Robbins up on stage. They said, "Well, what are you going to feel about that?" I said, "I'm going to be wanting my ticket down the front row, because I'll be sitting there with a pen and paper."
Yeah.
Because I'll be learning from that, and I'll be rejoicing in the fact that that person's really achieved, because then I know what I did was worthwhile.
Absolutely. Yeah. I always say, you got to be, my goal is for you to be better than I am.
That's a leadership principle. It's not a management principle. Management never wants you better than they are, whereas a leader does. That's what makes it duplicatable, like what Scotty said, and Angela said, and Alan said.
So do we need to look at new styles of leadership? Do we need to focus on new styles of leadership rather than the current models? Or is that
I don't know if it's new. I think you got to define it. You know, like Angela said, like redefine it, and you know, like it's. I think it's a skill that has become antiquated, especially through politics. Because politicians are supposed to be our leaders. They're not. They're managers. I don't know. What do you think, Angela? That's what I think. But what do you think? You've just done some work.
I think the whole power structure, as we talked about before, is just not working anymore. You know, you don't have people who want you to make decisions on their behalf. They want to make the decisions with them. And a lot of politicians don't understand that yet. And but there's
still stuck in the old model.
Yeah, but there's a lot of ego and a lot of power play. And so, you know, the new leaders don't have that ego. And funnily enough, most of those are women. Women are generally, and if you look at the way the world has responded to the coronavirus, the countries that have the strongest right-wing, and I'm using the word in quotes, like patriarchal, hierarchical power structure, where they knew, and it was for them, it was right, they had the most problems with corona. You know, but when there was a consultative approach, and that was mostly women, no problem. I mean, Finland, Taiwan, I mean, even Queensland. I mean, I know in Queensland here, people are really upset with our prime minister, but so far we have had 6 deaths in the whole time. You know, so.
Yeah, I think that the situation is changing. So you look at a lot of the leadership, the behaviours now. Before Corona, we didn't even notice. We saw that as being the role of a leader. And that was something that's been taught all the way through. But with the present situation, we're looking at things differently. It hasn't been that the leaders have changed. It's our awareness of their behaviour has changed, and what we will accept has changed. And yes, I think you're right, because when it comes to the women's side of things, males have had a certain way of doing things. The women have brought a new concept in. We need to look at that and see how the males can learn from that as well. It's not putting one being better than the other, but it's just going, here's a new way of looking at it that more fits the actual way we're thinking today, and work on that. So take that model. You know, we look at some of the behaviour. We used to look at Trump, for instance, his behaviour, his carry on. We would have seen that as being a strong leader in the past. Now we see it. We look at him and he's, you know, off in different directions all the time, gets upset about an election that he's lost and wants a recount. That's somebody who's in fear, who's scared of things.
Mm.
You know? And I'm not taking sides with, you know, the other side being any better. I'm just saying that behaviour has now become more obvious to us, whereas before we didn't notice it as much because we saw the dominant side of things and we saw that was a strength that we saw. But now, and as you've said, Scott, yourself, these men in the Victorian Brotherhood, and there's so many other men's groups out there that are doing the same thing, they're changing the way in which they're doing things. So they're actually noticing the difference as well. We've got men who are starting to come through who will very quickly catch up with the women. And that's when, as you said, when you went like that, Angela, that's when we come together.
The unity is the strength.
Women have got something to learn from.
The unity is the strength.
That's it.
We together is how we actually like it. And I really appreciate your compliments, John. And I've just got the door open. I've got literally beetles flying.
Scotty, I'm glad you're taking those compliments, but mate, they're just honest observations.
No, and thank you. But it's like
you don't have to thank me, mate. I don't know who did it to you. I know it wasn't me. Whoever did it to you or influenced you, that's who you need to thank.
It's like education. The word education is not to put in, it's to draw out.
Yeah.
So what Scott's doing now has been drawn out of him, and it'll be from the influences around him. And he's had plenty of, that's why I mentioned the coaches he had before and everything else. They're the ones that have allowed him to find inside himself and bring that forward. As John's just said, Scott, it's all you, but it's the together with everybody else. It's allowed that pathway for it to come out. Whereas before, if you didn't have that around you, you got no way of bringing it out. So we need.
You guys said before, it's humble too. He's humble.
So I think the luckiest thing is
more strength as a leader. Both you and Angela sort of said that.
And it's time for Scott to start owning it.
Yeah.
Because I'm done telling you.
I love it.
But
go, Angela.
Serious?
Go, Angela. Yeah, go, Angela.
I know I can lead men. I know I can lead women.
So
but I am just a man amongst men.
Say it again.
Let's
do it. It's changing the word lead to influence.
I am just a man.
You can influence.
Hey,
No.
I walk with men. I walk with them.
Yeah, just remember though that without going into the arrogance of I'm fantastic or anything else, stepping up, and as the others are saying, owning that side of it, you draw other men up to you faster again. So if you really want to help and grow other men faster, you got to own it. And that way, and I get Angela and others reminding me of the same thing because none of us are perfect here. We're all in the learning process. And I've got others like Kim Dunlop and others that, keep giving me a boot up the backside about owning my stuff as well.
Well, at least they don't have to lift their leg high.
There's such a big difference between having pride in what you do and who you are and hubris. The whole I'm up myself. I'm starting to believe my own propaganda, which is very, very different. But you are doing great work, Scott. And you hear this from people. I mean, you pull men back from the brink. You don't own that. I don't know what you can own.
And just remember, there was one very wise person who asked you a question one day, saying, why is it that you can always give to other people but find it so hard to accept things yourself?
No, Oscar. Yes.
I'm going to thank you for that. And I'm being sincere. And
you did it. It's an observation.
I'm going to answer it the same way in which I answered Oscar. I get these beautiful people in my life who give me them. All of them. They don't hide anything. They're safe enough to share and open up and give me their deepest stuff. It's a gift. It's an absolute
real reward.
People don't get that every day. I buy a new car every day. When I speak to men and I hear them.
Managers don't get it. Leaders get it. You're a leader.
Thank you. I'll take that. It's more. It's like, and the reason why I wanted to bring up leadership is something that and I'm going to, sorry, not to divert, but I'm conscious of time and I really want to run past something because I'm not happy with our society. I'm not happy with the way in which leadership is governing. But I know that if I walk into their bar and pick a fight and try and get into politics, I can't change a bloody thing because I'll get torn apart. I want to build a new bar. The drinks are good in my bar. Everybody's happy. We support one another. And I want them to come to my bar, our bar. Then ask us if they can have a drink. See if they can sit at our table and understand us. Because we're so damn important that if we can work together as we do in the Campfire Project, as I do inside the Brotherhood, as I do inside Sunday sessions, as I do when I go and sit with people in pain, I work with them. Because I feel as though right now, more than ever, I want to see men, and International Men's Day, I want to see men working from 9 till 3 when our children are between the ages of 5 and 15. Because we're there to support our kids. Have those conversations about cocaine. Have those conversations about condoms. Have those conversations from a place where they're trusted. They can be trusted. I don't enjoy having these conversations about cocaine and things like that with a 9-year-old boy. But you know what? I'm feeding the garden, giving it nutrients, giving it water. So one day when he's at a point in life where shit's going to go really wrong, he knows wholeheartedly he can come to me and say, Dad, I'm in trouble. I need help. Because that's a society we don't do. We don't ask for help when we need it. You know, and I appreciate so much, Angela, you know, look, watching me go down and I get worn down. I get worn down. At some point, I'm going to turn around and go, guys, I'm lifting. I need your help. Lift with me. Every day I put a post up from my heart just to share with people so you can feel me. Because that's how important we are. And I want us to feel that and know that.
Yeah, and what I'd like to say is that everybody who's listening in, you've just heard a description of a leader. These are the things that exactly. This is the whole thing. As you've said, you've talked about our bar. You've talked about bringing people in, changing the way they're thinking and everything else. This is what leadership's about. It's about, helping people to grow. And those people taking over from what we're doing, and we can continue to grow ourselves. And that's what you've been doing. So
I don't think I've ever seen. I've seen a lot of leadership things, and I've never seen anyone where there's 4 people on there that have come on to talk about leadership and pointed at one person in particular.
See,
Thank you. It's not, and I'm humbled by it. But it's more the fact that I'm passionate about it.
Really?
I don't wish. I
no wonder, Angela.
I want us to see how important we are. You know, I really do, and I keep saying it. I've never ever met anybody who hasn't added value to my life. Because I learn from them. And if that's what a true leader does, then we all need to do that. Because it's the greatest.
You lead with your heart.
Yeah.
You don't manage with your fear in your head.
That's the difference.
There is no fear when you're curious. There is no fear when you sit there and go, what can I learn in this?
There's no fear when you're genuine.
And that brings to another point, because one of the things in life that I think is significant is the honesty point with ourselves.
You can't be genuine and not be transparent.
No.
That's it.
No. But how many people can actually fill that gap between what I want what I'm afraid of, and the truth.
Yep.
And that's the part for me that's the skill where we've got to get to in life. And that's throughout everything. Like I am so lucky. So lucky. I sit in 4 nights a week. I'm sitting amongst men, giving other men the opportunity to know them from their heart space and truth. And I think International Men's Day today, I'm so proud of men. Proud. Because we're trying. We're learning to use our emotions. We're standing together, holding each other accountable. There was an incident that happened in Melbourne that a young girl was stabbed to death by a stalker. Everybody knew about it. Everybody knew how dangerous he was. Nobody did anything. Put Navy O in, did this. Tell you what, in amongst my circles, I don't have to worry about Navy O. And it's not a threat of violence. It's a threat of a society that just won't tolerate that shit. It'll be sat down and spoken to. You know? Oh, that's
a bit more than spoken to.
Mm.
I'm with you, Scotty. 100%. 100%.
Yeah. Sorry, I've given a bit tonight, and I don't.
Well, that subject's probably a very long discussion on that one as well.
I'll cut that, but I do want to hear from everybody. What are the key points to new leadership? What are the key points? I'm going to start with you, Angela, please.
Okay, so first of all, I would say accountability for mistakes. Don't try to blame other people, but owns them, learns from them, take constructive action instead of, hiding behind whatever position and power and all of that. And again, walks the talk with integrity. I think those are really important points. And parks their ego. So that would be part of new leadership. So that they can be an example for the next generation, where they are neither a protector nor a buddy, but they walk their talk in such a way that it empowers people to show up as adults rather than become parents and children, and to perpetuate the whole cycle of I tell you, you obey, and the next generation grows into the parent, and I tell you because now I have the opportunity. But we get into that place where we meet and we can just work together.
I dream of that world.
Love it.
Thank you. John.
I totally agree with that. 100%. Yeah, for me, like I said at the start, leadership's influence. You can't have influence without being transparent, without being integral. And where Angela was saying, parents, so many parents are managers. They want to discipline or authoritize over their kids. And true leadership is duplicatable, like we've spoken about. You want your kids to be a better version of you, not someone that does what you say. Adults, exactly. Yes, thank you. It's absolutely adults. So for me, leadership is about growing up. Management is about being immature. You can't be a manager and a leader. It's like being a skinny, fat person or a tall, short person. You're either one or the other. And one rubs the other the wrong way. So when you're like Scotty, I know you'd have the same problem. You'd find that a lot of managers, you'll butt heads with them every time. Authoritarian figures that want to say, you just do what I say, you'll butt heads with them. So do I, which is quite funny since I was 20 years in the cops. But I butted heads with those sort of people every day. So, yeah. So I'm totally back up what Angela's saying, and want to highlight what Scott does as a leader is influence people in a positive way, an integral way, but also in a genuine, passionate way, which is the true essence of a leader.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Papa Smith.
Okay, well, as John said, with management, there is no leadership. With leadership, there is management, but it's not from the leader. The management comes from the people themselves who self-manage themselves. And while they're doing that, in the way they behave, they then lead the people around them as well. So the word I was looking for before, and I've mentioned the word virus, was that leadership is infectious when it's introduced the right way. It's a matter of, as Angela was saying, of accepting what you didn't get right. The video I put up the other week about the difference between shame and regret. Everybody on the planet's got things that we regret. There wouldn't be one of us who doesn't, except possibly a newborn baby. But as far as conscious levels go, outside of that, though, shame, there's a lot of people using the word that they have shame for the things they did. And I always challenge them on that and say, right, did you know you were doing the wrong thing when that happened? And they go, no. And I say, well, what did you use at the time? Oh, the best information, the information I had at the time. So there's no shame in that. So realize that when people are saying, hey, you made a mistake, or you realize you made a mistake yourself, don't be ashamed of it. Just realize, hey, the information I had at the time, I didn't do what could have been better if I use the information I have now. So as Angela said, learn from those things, accept them. There is no, there's nothing you should put yourself down for when you regret something. And shame should not be part of it. It shouldn't be in the dictionary. Shame should only go for the people who know they're doing the wrong thing when they did it. So with that, realizing that, yes, take ownership of it, learn from it, and show other people your vulnerability. As John said, being transparent. If you can do that, then people will respect you, because you're always hearing that the man's looking for the perfect woman and the woman's looking for the perfect man. And I keep saying that thought terrifies me. I never want to meet the perfect woman, because the pressure that puts on me, there's no way I'm going to be perfect. Yeah. And so I want to see the imperfections, because those imperfections, we learn from that, and to watch somebody grow from that, that is where a real relationship comes in. So if you're looking for that, if I'm looking for that in my partner, I want to have that in me as well. Yes, I'm going to make mistakes and I want to learn from them. So if you don't think you're good enough, get over it. And if you think you're too good, then get over yourself. Lead by example and watch the people around you. Use the people around you as a measurement of how well you're doing. If you have to manage them all the time, then you're not a leader. If you see them coming up and taking responsibility for things and stepping into it, you know that you've been a leader. You've led them well. And you know that while you're watching them, if you've given them everything you've got and they've brought their experience to the table, then expect them to and hope that they're going to be better than you. Because then you'll know that you've really achieved it as a leader.
Great. And thank you.
Yeah.
And I would like to share something quickly at the end of the night that I think I was very, very privileged to be a part of. Looking at business moving forward for lots of different leaders and owners of companies, I want to share a little thing that I was involved with for a company. I'm going to plug it because I'm so proud of the company that did this. They had an opportunity and some stuff needed to be spoken about and open up some opportunities with the employees. GM Pest Control got me on board to come in and do a presentation about life, the opportunities, and how to listen to each other. Inside this small operation, we put our hearts on the table. We spoke about our emotions, positive and negative, in an open format held space for each other. The boss then sat there and put his heart on the table and left it there. Vulnerable. For me, that was true leadership. It allowed him to be human. The relationship those boys have now with their employer, each other, and their customers is second to none. Because they understand the emotional impact of everything they do.
And as John said, that's the power of that vulnerability.
Yeah.
That's where leadership comes in. True leadership is starting to come in from people sharing themselves. It is the ultimate gift you can give to somebody else. And it's scary at times. I sat here and with Alan and confronted me. This time last year, I had a phone call from Alan, and I had to share with him my past. It scared the shit out of me. But look at now. There's no mistakes in life. Lessons, opportunity, or pain. There's only 3 things you get in life. Depending on
they
how
all go in the rear vision mirror.
True. But if you can accept where you're at, learn to understand it, and then take responsibility for it,
Yeah.
it's as simple as that. And leadership can be as simple as looking after yourself in that format. Take control of you, which then will support others.
It's not just making decisions, like you said, it's the courage to make the right decisions.
You know, everybody makes, I've never met anybody that's made a wrong decision. Every single person I've ever met has made a decision based upon the information they have at the time, and they make a decision for it to be the right decision. Only when they get new information does it become a wrong decision. So you can either sit there and say it's been a wrong decision, or you can take that as a lesson and make another decision to create a better outcome. The problem in society is indecision. You don't make
success is built on mistakes. Mistakes aren't built on success.
Absolutely.
Success is built on mistakes.
We learn to walk.
That's how you learn. Yeah.
Often. We get up for a little bit and we fall again. We get up for a little bit longer and we fall again. And eventually we get there. Keep falling forward. So we're going into an hour, and I'm a little bit humble. But I am a leader.
Yes, you are.
I walk with men. I walk with women with an open heart, wanting to learn it. I want to learn people. You want to be a leader? Learn someone. On that, I'm going to say to everybody, thank you so much for being around.
Close. I'd like to just quickly say that leadership is changing. I was told today there's a company in America that's got about 100 or 350 employees, and they have now asked them, or actually told them, they're having a split week. They can work from home and they can also work at the office. They can do both. They can't do one or the other. They're doing both. That shows leadership of the company that they're letting people do that. So we are seeing change.
Yeah.
In a big way, we're seeing change.
Yeah.
We're learning people and we're prepared to fail. That's the bravery which I want us to all have. Let's go out and do things really wrong. Because then we can do things a little bit better. And we make progress. Providing we're prepared to fail. You know, and I love that. So does anyone else want to say anything? I'm a little bit humbled and a little bit talked up too much tonight, so I just want to sit back. Anyone got anything they want to add? Any questions? So, Angela, is there anything you want to add to anything?
No.
No, we're all happy.
Yeah.
Happy.
Yeah. I think we've covered things really well. We've covered a lot in there. There's so much more that can always be said as well, but we've touched on the major parts, and I think the people who are listening in it's time for them to go and sit and think about what they've been doing and realise and just see how much they have been leading themselves.
Mhm.
How they're working with their partners, their husbands, their wives, and their children. You don't have to be running an organisation. Just think about how you're impacting the people directly around you.
Yeah.
I think that is one of the statements that could have been said right now. Leadership isn't always at work. It's in every place that you're engaging with people.
And it starts with yourself.
No one else.
Yeah.
All right, campers. Well, again, we always go over the hour because we could talk for ages. And here's the thing: when we sit here and listen and we learn and we find ways to grow, it's such a beautiful place to be. The campfire. Every single time we listen to one of the one-on-ones, we see one of the panels. We grow. You can't help but grow because people are putting their heart into it. So be a part of it. Get around it. Next week, I'm talking about death. So we're going to go from leadership to death. We'll see how we go. But it's just that's the best thing about the Campfire Project. There's no taboo. We talk. Yeah. So beautiful. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Angela. Thank you, John. Thank you, campers.
Thank you.
We'll see everyone next week. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Or in broadcast.